Hey, what's up? It's DFS Rico coming at you with my early insight and some picks for this February 26 NBA DraftKings slate. Early on, I'm looking at players from Memphis due to injuries and players from San Antonio due to injuries. And obviously, same thing with Ben Simmons. I still like guys like Richardson and Embiid at their price tags. So at point guard, just going through early on, I really like the price tag on Luka Doncic at 10.3. If you want to pay up, it's going to be a preference of who you want to pay up for. There's a couple studs in good positions today. Luka Doncic at 10.3 against San Antonio's looking good. He almost put up triple-double his last game. He lost a lot of run due to blowout. So as long as this game can stay competitive, 10.3 is just such a cheap price tag with him, and I could see me running it back with Luka due to the fact that I'll be playing a couple Spurs today. Also, another good price tag. $8K for Dinwiddie's not too bad with Kyrie out. It's a little pricey, but I could see me going in a really good matchup versus Washington, fast-paced. Washington not a good defense, but a high-scoring team as well, so there you can usually keep it close. 7.9 for Booker's a really low price tag. I really like him as well. Against the Clippers, tough matchup, so I feel people will avoid him. But good price tag, honestly. Really good price tag for a guy like Devin Booker with a high ceiling as well. And no Kelly Oubre today, which should open up a lot more shots and usage for him as well. Karis LeVert, I like him, 7.5 versus Washington. Still a little too cheap with Kyrie out. John Morant in a fast-paced matchup versus Houston. I could see me going him. He's been on a really bad slump after the All-Star break. He was killing it before All-Star break. Came out of All-Star break with a huge slump. This team really needs him to pick it up if they're going to try to make the playoffs. So, really like John Morant. 6.9, Rubio's not too bad with Kelly Oubre out. He had a monster game his last game. Same thing as Booker, though. He's going to be in a tough matchup. But as long as this game can stay close, Rubio and Booker seem to be good plays at the point guard position. Let's keep going. DeJounte Murray at 5.9. He was playing a ton of minutes before this last game, but they did get blown out. So if he can get back to that 30-point range, 30-minute range again, I see him as a good play with Aldridge out as well. Who else? Ish Smith, not a bad play versus Brooklyn in a competitive game, I would assume. Shabazz Napier is not too bad. If he got a lot of run due to Bertans being out. They were running a smaller lineup out there versus Milwaukee. Doesn't seem like a bad play. He got a little extra run due to the fact that he was running hot, but I still think I could see him playing like 28, 29 minutes at that price tag. I could see him exceeding value in a good matchup. I like Darius Garland at 4.7 if you want to be a little cheaper. No Dennis Smith. I think Peyton is supposed to be back. I think that's it at the point guard position from what I see. But probably my favorite play so far at the point guard position is going to be Devin Booker. I like him a lot in this matchup. Shooting guard. And you can play him at both point guard or shooting guard, which is good. Shooting guard, just looking through, I really like DeMar DeRozan early on. No Aldridge on the court. He had a couple games earlier. I think in late January, he was playing without Aldridge, and he put up 51 on Utah, 53 on Chicago. He was having some monster games, and it's honestly $7K without Aldridge on the court is a bad price tag. It's a really good price tag, but bad mispricing. So just early on, I am going to plug him in. But let's see. Jaylen Brown at 6.7, not a bad price. He's still a little too cheap. Tougher matchup. Well, people will assume Utah's a tougher matchup, but honestly, Utah has not been playing too well on the defensive end lately. They've been allowing over like 115 points a game over the last 15 games. They just got blown out by Phoenix, and Boston's a much better team than Phoenix. So at 6.7, I feel people will shy just because of the name, with Utah is known to be a good defensive team, but I still think that's a little too cheap for a guy like Jaylen Brown. So, yeah, let's see. Not too much. Josh Richardson, I talked about him. I like him He's getting the minutes, just not really scoring, but 39 minutes in his last game versus Atlanta. He's still a little too cheap for Ben Simmons being out, but I mean, he's going to have that game where he's going to break out, and you probably don't want to miss it. It's going to come soon, and Cleveland's a game where it can happen. Kevin Porter Jr. had a monster game versus Miami in his last game. He went for 51 fantasy points. If they're giving this guy the run, he can be solid, but I feel like people will chase him, and if the ownership is there, I might just avoid him. I like Joe Harris, 4.8 versus Washington in a good matchup. As long as he's playing 30-plus minutes, 4.8 is a pretty low price tag for him. If you want to have exposure to this game, Joe Harris is the guy you could go to. Talked about Napier. Brooks, 4.7 is not a bad price. He hasn't been playing too good, but his shot just hasn't been falling. 1 for 7, 3 for 14, 4 for 14. He's just been on a cold streak, but you know when his shot is going in, he's an easy 30-point fantasy points per game guy. He just needs that shot to fall, so I could see me going to him in a couple lineups. Temple, not a bad play, and I think Wilson Chandler is supposed to be out this game. Might give him a little extra minutes. He's been playing pretty solid these last couple games as well. In a fast-paced matchup, not a bad play. Call Bridges should get a little extra run due to Kelly Oubre being out. I also like Eric Gordon, 4.1. In a fast-paced matchup versus Memphis, should be a high-scoring game. I think that's all I like at this. So, early on, I really like Jaylen Brown at 6.7. Plug him in right there. Small forward. Beal's not a bad play versus Brooklyn. Just rather pay up for some other guys. Karis LeVert, I like him. I spoke about him. Might take a couple shots on him. So, DeRozan, I really like him at 7K. 6.2 for Covington's not bad. In a good matchup, fast pace, 6.2. He only played 30 minutes last game. As long as the game stayed competitive, he would have gone for 35 fantasy points at least, 37. If he played with 35 minutes, expect this game to be pretty competitive. So I think that's not a bad play at 6.2. It's one of the games I want exposure to, including with like the Washington-Brooklyn game, the Memphis-Houston game, the San Antonio game, the Philly game, are the games I really want exposure to. I like DeAndre Hunter's been playing very well in a tougher, slower-paced matchup with Orlando, but, I mean, he's been playing really good these last 4 out of his last 5 games. He's gone over 30 fantasy points, and at this price tag, if he can keep giving you that much production, this could be a really solid play. 4.9, I might take a shot on him. Taurean Prince might get a little extra run with Chandler out versus Washington. I like him as well. Josh Jackson at 4.5K is a really good play. If he's starting against a Houston team that's really fast-paced, he's going to be putting up shots at 4.5K. I really like him if he's starting, which I assume he's going to be starting with Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark out, so I really like him. Talked about all these guys already. Iguodala's not bad at that price. It just says filler, though. Rudy Gay could be a good filler. With Aldridge out, he could get a little extra run. Cameron Johnson with Oubre out, not a bad play. But I'd rather just wait to see who starts between Cameron Johnson and Dario Saric over Oubre. Whoever starts, I might get some exposure to them in a tougher matchup, but they should get the run, honestly. So let's see. Right here early on, I'm probably going to plug in DeMar DeRozan at 7K, which is just a solid play. Power forward. I like Randall versus Charlotte. At 8.4, he's not too bad. Charlotte's terrible against big men, power forwards, and centers, so I could see me going to him. Aaron Gordon should feast in this kind of matchup. I feel like he might be... he will be under-owned just due to the other players that are playing this position as well that you could put in, but he's been on a tear these last 4 games. Over 45 fantasy points, 54, 42, 53 over the last 4 games. If he's going to be giving you that kind of production at 78, I see no wrong with him against Atlanta. Terrible defense, fast-paced game, as long as the game can stay pretty close. Tobias Harris is not bad with Simmons still out. Covington, spoke about him. I spoke about a lot of these guys already. The Bertans news will be pretty important if he's out. But I think Brian is back in, so Hachimura did play 46 minutes, but with Brian back and Bertan's parts possibly back, I don't expect that to be happening again. Spoke about DeAndre Hunter, I like him. Prince. So right here I'm just going to put in Josh Jackson, a 4.5 for some value. I really like him. At center, I really like Joel Embiid. If I was going to be paying up for anyone, it'll probably be Joel Embiid. He's in a really good matchup versus Cleveland. They really have no one to stop this guy. Drummond doesn't play any defense. 10.5 with Ben Simmons out, he's just been killing it lately. Other than the game where they got blown out versus Milwaukee, versus Brooklyn and Atlanta, seems like the games where he's supposed to feast, he's feasting. Destroyed Chicago for 64 fantasy points. Brooklyn for 70 fantasy points. Atlanta for 79 fantasy points. I could see him doing the same thing to Cleveland. He's probably my favorite stud to pay up for as of right now. Vucevic at 9.5 is not bad if you want to pivot off of a guy like Embiid. Bam Adebayo, I don't know why he's questionable, but if he does play, which I expect him to, it's not a bad play versus Minnesota. As long as Butler's still out, I see he playing him. Spoke about Randall. I like Porzingis at 8.3. He's really found himself ever since he's been coming back from injury. He's been playing really solid. 8.1, I could see myself going to 8 and against Clippers. The Clippers aren't too good against centers. But obviously you need that game to stay close. Brandon Clark is out. Gorgie Dang, if he starts over Jackson, over Brandon Clark, and then I like him as well. He's a really good point per minute guy. I mean, he went for 38 and 32 over the last two games. 2 games where Jaren Jackson has been out. So if he starts, which I don't think he will, but he could get an extra run due to the fact that Jonas won't be able to keep up with the small ball lineup. So I feel like he might get a little extra run even if he doesn't start. So he could be a good play. Daniel Tice should be a solid play versus Utah at 5K. Just scrolling down, there's not really much else I like. Trey Lyles at 3.8 shouldn't be bad. With Aldridge out, he should get a little extra run. But the main guy that everyone's going to probably be playing at 3.2K is Jacob Pottle. He's practically a lock, honestly, and some, single game, a little multi-entry lineups. He should be a lock at 3.2 with Aldridge out. He should start. Earlier this season, Aldridge was out, and he put up 40 fantasy points, 23 fantasy points, 32 fantasy points in the games that he missed. And even at 18 minutes, he was just destroying. You've seen over the last 2 games at 16 and 13 minutes, 19.5 fantasy points, 23.8 fantasy points. Even if you bump those minutes up to at least 22, 24, he's going to exceed value at that price tag. And I see him just playing about even 22 minutes is enough just for him to get you what you need. Anything up above that is just going to be even more money for you. So I'm going to be locking him in a ton of lineups this weekend. So let's lock him in. So yeah, these are my 5 early plays that I really, really like. If you have any comments, questions, just go ahead and comment, like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Thank you. Appreciate it.